So today I'm talking about the post-marathon recovery curve and how your body recovers generally after a marathon. So if you're an endurance runner or an ultra endurance runner, keep on watching, keep on listening. Or if you're considering being an ultra or marathon runner, then do keep on watching, keep on listening, as hopefully this will be useful for you. Welcome back to consecutive day 1585 of a Diary of a Runpreneur. If you believe in my mission of saving the lives of children by attempting the ultimate ultramarathon of run vlogging on consecutive days, a distance of a lap of the world, barefoot style, then do give this a subscribe, share, like and comment. More people we get in front of, more money we raise, more children's lives we save, which is why I do this every single day. Thank you as always, and let's get started. So, consecutive day 1585 of a Diary of a Runpreneur, and today's topic is all about the post-marathon recovery curve. So obviously the fitter you are, generally speaking, in terms of fitness relevant to the activity that you have partaken in. So if you're a pretty serious ultra or marathon runner, you will recover quicker than somebody who is new to this. So that's the first thing that's key to note on this topic. But today I'm talking about the post-marathon recovery curve, and this will be probably fairly relevant to most people. Obviously the super elites will be very, very different. But anyway, the reason I'm talking about this is, yes, I ran Loch Ness Marathon at the weekend, had a real tough experience, probably pushed myself a lot harder than I would have liked. Sounds a crazy statement because you're pushing yourself pretty hard when you do a marathon regardless. But yeah, this was a particularly hard one because I picked up an injury after started showing signs about mile 7. By 13 or halfway, it was absolute agony, and I had to limp run the second half marathon of the marathon. But anyway, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about post-marathon recovery. So I'm just trying to set the scene that I exerted more than I usually exert at marathons. Now, yes, marathons absolutely take it out of you, but I've run marathons where I felt pretty good the next day, and I've run marathons where I felt like a broken man the next day. Now, I've been more broken after this one than I perhaps usually would be, so I'm just giving you some parameters. But I still think the post-marathon recovery curve is still pretty similar. So what do I mean by this? Well, you're just basing it on how you feel, muscle stiffness, muscle fatigue, aches, pains, all these things. Because ultimately, when you run a marathon or something extreme from an exercise perspective, what's ultimately happening is you're pushing your muscles to such levels of exertion they tear. This is how muscle strength grows. You're making lots of minor tears in your muscles, and then that's when you get that kind of achy pain feeling after a workout, and then they recover and repair slightly bigger than before. So that's where you get kind of muscle mass growth. And just got a car coming behind me. Just want to get out of the way of this guy. So he's so just bear with me. Let me get past this. So anyway, so as I was saying, that's how muscle mass is grown, or that's how workouts kind of occur. Obviously, when you do things to the extreme, like over the distance of a marathon or beyond, they're going through excessive exertion, which is a lot more than what you'd get usually in your gym or on a training run, for example. So inevitably the recovery is going to be longer. So what happens for me is after the event, your muscles are incredibly sore. You get some extreme soreness, mobility difficulty, moving around. The key that I find in these situations is to try and keep moving, keep standing. As soon as you sit down or stay still for a long period of time, you start stiffening up, which makes it even harder as your muscles are trying to proactively repair themselves, and it's easier for them to do so when you're in a state of being still. So moving around keeps them a bit looser, keeps blood running through, oxygenated blood pumping through your muscles. It can potentially aid your recovery time and stop you seizing up to the degree where it's absolute agony to move. Then you get the next day. Now the next day, depending on how your warm down from the previous marathon has been, from the previous day has been, can vary. I generally find that I'm incredibly stiff, but I find that it's manageable. This is what I'm experienced this week, whereby I had to go out and run again. Yes, it was incredibly uncomfortable. My usual running pace is somewhere close to about 5-minute K pace as a training run. When I'm running marathons or races, I'm usually anything from kind of low 4s to kind of mid 4s to kind of 4:45 kilometre pace. That's generally kind of where I am as a runner or endurance runner. And so I went out for my run. I only did I think I did a 6K, 6.3 I think I did kilometres the day after, because my daughter was at football training, so I had to run and then a little loop to get back to her. So a little bit longer than I would have rather have done a 5K. But I was running somewhere in the region of kind of 6 to 6:30 kilometre pace. So quite significantly slower, because A, that was about as much as I could manage, and B, it was enough to kind of get the oxygenated blood pumping through my body. Then you get the day after, which was yesterday, which yesterday I was stiffer than the first day. Now maybe that was because I did excessive work on my already fatigued legs on the day after the marathon, but the day after the marathon, if that makes sense, so 2 days after the actual event, it was extremely stiff, extremely uncomfortable, worse than after the marathon and worse than the day after the marathon. So the kind of recovery curve went like almost, I'm extremely depleted, a very marginal recovery the next day. I almost went up into a state of pain on the second day, and then the third day, which is today, I'm back running kind of 5-minute 30 kilometre pace. So I'm still sore and got some stiffness, but my mobility is probably 75% back now, and I'd expect tomorrow to probably be about 90% back, and then the day after I'll probably be, so 5 days after the event, I expect to be back to usual fitness. Now, again, I'm a streak runner, so I've done 1,585 days straight today, including marathons, ultra marathons, and the like. So I am a bit more well versed to this than most. So people's recovery curve will be slightly different, but generally speaking, in terms of recovery, is in 0% being completely unable to move. What you generally find is the day after, you might be somewhere in the region of maybe 20% to capacity. Just got this truck going past us. So yeah, you might be somewhere in the region of 20%. You will then, or maybe 25% even, you will then find that you might drop back down to about 10% the day after, depending on whether you've done any movement or not. If you haven't done any movement, it might remain fairly similar. Because I did a run, I dropped down to kind of 10-15%, which was really tough to run in. And then the day after that, so day 3, my recovery levels are kind of back up to 75%, so I've made a pretty significant jump. Now, the curve will be probably relatively similar for most people. Obviously, the caveat being most people after a marathon would generally take a week off, so it might be gentle walks rather than runs. So that does play a significant part. So what you may find is that you might be at kind of 10-15% recovery on day 1, maybe 15-20% on day 2. You might get up closer to around 50% day 3, maybe 75% day 4, 90% day 5, and so on. It might take you a bit longer, depending on your kind of fitness levels. So that's something to certainly consider. But generally speaking, for most fairly fit people, you should be back to something like normality within a week. Certainly if you're still feeling the effects of the marathon 2 weeks after, I suggest physiotherapy or some kind of sessions to kind of aid recovery, because that's a slow return. Like I say, I'm generally looking at being back to normal, certainly within 3 to 5 days after a marathon. And like I say, I'm running every day after, which In certain instances, I think it aids recovery. In other situations, like I think definitely the day after the marathon, this occasion, the run had probably hindered my recovery because I just clearly wasn't ready after the exertion I put my body through. But yeah, that's the marathon, post-marathon recovery curve and how it varies for different people. But it just gives you some kind of concepts around recovery. Everybody's a little bit different, but the curve will be similar in terms of how long it takes you to get back to 100% or close to it. And the key thing here is, I think the learnings from my diary is post-marathon recovery curves have a lot of similarities across a lot of people. The big key differentiator is based on your base fitness level. Obviously, the fitter you are, generally speaking, for the event you've just participated in. So if you're an endurance runner, an elite endurance runner, you're going to recover a lot quicker from endurance races than an amateur endurance runner. But the recovery curve will be similar, just over a shorter or longer distance. So as I've explained, I run through my recovery. I'm usually going pretty slow just to get oxygenated blood through my body, my muscles, to try and aid recovery. If you do it right, it can assist in recovery. If you do it wrong, it can hinder. So for the new or amateur runners who aren't familiar with these experiences, the best rule of thumb is to just rest, possibly do some light walking, certainly for at least a week after a marathon. If you're more of an advanced runner, you might want to get back to doing some very slow recovering running, maybe kind of 2 to 5 days after. But for me, my recovery curve, I'm usually looking to be back to feeling pretty normal again between 3 and 5 days. This is day 3 today, and I'm running possibly 30 seconds a kilometre slower than I would normally on training runs. So still got a bit of muscle tightness, a bit of muscle fatigue, but yeah, the signs of being back to normal are pretty promising. So hopefully that's useful. Questions or comments, drop me a line. I'll respond to everyone. Do remember though, if you believe in my mission of saving the lives of children by attempting the ultimate ultra marathon of run vlogging on consecutive days, a distance to a lap of the world, barefoot style, do give this a subscribe, share, like and comment. More people we get in front of, more money we raise, more children's lives we save, which is why I do this every single day. Thanks as always, stay positive, stay happy. I'll see you again tomorrow.